Ladies and gentlemen, this debate will come to order. I am blessed to welcome you all to the English debate in Geography Education in University of Education Indonesia. The topic being debated today is this house believes that school offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. There are two teams representing the government side are Rabihatun Raihanah as the first speaker, Nida Rahma Maulidya as the second speaker, and Inka Aliyah as the third speaker. Speaking for the opposition side are Fernandi Rahma Putri as the first speaker, Putri Okta Rinda as the second speaker, and Regita Cahyani as the third speaker. And I, Ade Kurniawan, as your moderator. Before we go to debate, let me read the rules for our debate today. All speakers given 7 minutes time for arguing each session except in reply session. Each speaker has 5 minutes for telling less argument. For the position, the first speaker of each group will introduce the theme and point of the reason of being pro or contra to the topic given. For the second session, the speaker from each group will deliver the speech to express your opinion about the topic. For the third session, the speaker from each group will keep up the argument and make it stronger than before. For the fourth session, the last speaker from each group will conclude your opinion. All participants can give the argument with, say, POI after 1 minute in all sessions except fourth session. Lastly, moderator will give a conclusion from this argument by the two teams. Next, first session will be start now. Please, to the government team, the time is yours. 7 minutes, start now.
Thank you for the moderator. I am Rabihatun Raihanah as the first speaker from the government team, and my friend Nida Rahma Maulidya as the second speaker, and Inka Aliyah as the third speaker. For almost 2 years, students at the level of primary school, elementary school, junior high school, senior high school, and college students are taking online learning because of the pandemic. At this time, I'm as the first speaker going to tell you about the topics where we are focusing about. With Surat Keputusan Bersama 4 from the Minister of Education and Culture and the emergence of school, honestly student guardians and students in implementation of offline school in 2022 are considered to be able to anticipate COVID-19 clusters in schools. And we are agree enough with the motion, which is this house believes that school or offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. Firstly, let me define what is offline school. Offline school is the traditional counterpart to online education and the original method of learning that allows students to have regular face-to-face interactions with their friends and the teachers. In this case, we are focusing in Indonesian condition. On this occasion, there are 3 main topics that underline as supported reasons for the government team to holding off the offline schools in Indonesia. First, the student understanding, the student and the teacher itself understanding it reduced, and the teaching and learning process is not controlled. Many students cannot observe subject well. One of the factors at this point is the students are not used to participating in online learning using many applications, which is sometimes it becomes very confusing. It has also caused the lack of social relations at the school because they haven't seen each other for almost 2 years, or even the one who just start the first year of school, they haven't even come to their schools. Second is the limited learning support facilities. In addition to the recognized factors, another technical problem that is makes it difficult for children to participate in online is the considered not to maximal to cover problems in online classes. So that it's gonna be better if we implementing offline school so that the students and the teachers wouldn't be worry about the facilities because it could be supported by the school itself. And the last is there is already COVID-19 vaccine. With this vaccine, the level of safety could be increased by requiring students to carry out vaccines earlier and improving the health facilities in the school itself. offline schools could be implemented in Indonesia, like for example, Japan and Australia, they have implemented offline schools by prioritizing COVID-19 health protocol and improving their rate of vaccines. For all those reasons, we do believe that offline school is necessary and should be implemented immediately in Indonesia despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the government team. Let's start the session for opposition team. For the opposition team, time is yours, 7 minutes from now.
Thank you, moderator. Before starting my argument, I would like to introduce my teammates first. My name is Fernandi Putri, and I will be the first speaker of the opposition group. Next is my partner, Putri Okta Rinda, as the second speaker, and the third one is Regita Cahyani as the third speaker. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I, as the first speaker from the opposition group, state that I cannot agree with the arguments that was presented by the affirmative team before. The first point they convey was about student reduced understanding because students were not used to participating in online learning. As we know that we have experienced this pandemic situation for almost 2 years now. Maybe at the beginning of the pandemic, all changes from offline to online made all parties feel confused, unfamiliar, and difficult to adapt. However, now that 2 years will pass, almost all activities that are offline first have the alternative to being online. Also, the development is so much faster because the online system cannot be separated from the development of the technologies. Regarding student reduced understanding, in our opinion, it cannot be the reason for the online learning system because the online learning system is actually designed according to the needs of student, and it is still developing to suit the needs of the student. Even with the online system, there are various variations of learning methods, such as online learning application like Ruang Guru and Zenius, which can be a support for student to develop further. Second, the next argument that being stated by the affirmative team earlier regarding the limited learning support facilities such as mobile phones, laptops, and the internet. In this regard, it is necessary to know that in 2020, Indonesia is included in the top 10 most smartphone user in the world, and even that number is still changing toward the higher number. Indeed, as we also know that smartphone users in Indonesia are in various age group ranging from children, teenagers, adult, and even elderly. This is because the price of smartphone in Indonesia is affordable to be owned by the various group of people. Also, during this pandemic, the government will not let go of the needs of the community. There are several efforts by the government to help the community. Example in the form of the data quota assistance for teaching and learning activities from the government on a monthly basis for students, teachers, lecturers, and people that who have linked with educational activities. Third, the argument regarding the existence of vaccination. Having been vaccinated does not deny that students and teachers are not infected with the COVID-19 virus because the transmission of COVID-19 is not only in the school area, but outside of school too, maybe at home or trips to go to school or even family members. Unknowingly become a source of infection. By implementing offline school, it is feared that new cluster will emerge where there is the possibility of crowding. Not only that, it can also be seen that the latest news at this time has confirmed the entry of a new variant of the COVID-19 virus, namely Omicron. So it is very high risk if schools are carried out offline. That being said, I want to state again that we cannot agree with the motion school offline learning is starting this year, despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. It is not a wise decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to the second session. To the government team, the time is yours. 7 minutes, start now.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator. Based on what was conveyed by the pro team, it was stated that the previous students were not familiar with online school, so they didn't absorb the lesson well. However, as a transitional generation, we may feel the significant difference between offline and online school. even though sitting in front of a screen has become an inevitable routine for students during a pandemic due to the demands of doing online school. In fact, some people, for students and teachers and parents too, have complained about this change because school were originally the place and time to interact with teachers and friends. It seems to have disappeared because online interaction don't feel real. Based on the previous reasons, that there are so many obstacles that occur in the implementation of online schools, especially in the terms of economy. Responding to the argument about supporting facilities, in this case are electronic devices, in the form of gadgets, smartphones, or laptops, according to the report of the Federation of Indonesian Teacher Union, more than 50% of students don't have smartphone. This is based on basic education data from the Ministry of Education and Culture, which has imputed 21.7 million student cell phones numbers out of a total of 44 million students throughout Indonesia. Into more detail, the number of students in Indonesia by education level in the 2020-2021 academic year is 45.21 million students. This is pure data from the Central Statistics Agency report. Of this, the majority or as many as 24.84 million students, of whom are elementary school students, where most of their level is still limited in the use of electronic device, or even their parents who have not been able to fulfill it, not to mention the internet in operation. There are many examples of study struggles that require them to keep going to school just to take their assignment. Teaching and learning activities in school may involve 100% of students starting in the second semester of the 2021-2022 academic year. The government issued a joint decree of the four ministers of learning in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the four ministerial decree regulates to face-to-face learning. With the four ministerial decree, school can organize offline school for all students as long as they meet certain requirements. In general, the rules refer to the degree of the four ministers regarding offline schools that from education units, educator to the community, each has rule for achieving vaccination, which must be met with 2 doses of vaccines. In addition, lesson per day will be limited according to the percentage of those achievements. That's all from me. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for the government team. Let's start the second session for the opposite team. For the opposite team, time is your 7 minutes. Start now.
Okay, before giving the argument, I want to remind the affirmative team that we are in pandemic situation. It has not ended yet. The virus is still growing rapidly all over in the world. It is not only about the interaction or social chain that affect the mentality of person, but it's about the future of our world. Well, regarding the problem of limited use of electronic as supporting facilities, some of people are still having problem, but in this case, the government has tried to rescue two important things, which is health and education. In terms of education, to support online learning, the government provides monthly learning quota assistance. In terms of health, the government the time of the spread of the COVID-19 virus because it is very risky to run school offline during this pandemic. Not to mention, the current conditions are still not safe enough to carry out offline learning activities. Plus, for now, as explained earlier, it has been confirmed that the entry of the new variant of the COVID-19 virus, namely Omicron, is very high risk if schools are carried out offline. We also have to learn from experience very high risk if schools are carried out offline. Previously, there was a Delta variant of the coronavirus that spread suddenly and result in a high number of positive cases of COVID-19 with several symptoms and little effect. For that, we must learn from the experience so the same thing does not happen again. In addition, online learning does not only have negative impact but also have a positive impact. When learning is done online, families can also collaborate with teachers in building character education for studying because family is the most important element in building human personality. Besides families being able to collaborate in building character, students can also build technology mastery skill because online learning requires sufficient mastery of technology. Students can also avoid the spread of COVID-19 because learning is carried out away from physical contact. In conclusion, online learning is more flexible because teaching and learning process become easier and can save time and effort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the opposite time. Now we go to the third session. To the government team, the time is yours. 7 minutes, start now.
Minister of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, Nadiem Makarim, reminded the impact of online school on students, family, and the chance of our future generations. The impact is that if we don't move fast now to do offline school, we will lose lots of learning, which can be permanent. Mental and physical health will impact permanently on students. They will feel lonely, experiencing conflict in their family, being a social and other permanent impact. So offline school is a risk that must be addressed. People don't really say and don't realize what the risk of our future generations would be like. Joshua C. Morgenstern, Assistant Director at the Center for the Study of Traumatic Stress in Maryland, US, explained that historically, the adverse mental health effects of disaster impact more people and last much longer than the health effects. One of the research is the 25 years
Your eye,
practice
please.
of the Korean still talking. One of the research is a 25 years retrospective review of the impact of the Chernobyl nuclear accident in Ukraine. Researchers found that 2 decades later, first responders had elevated rates of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. They also conclude that mental health effects were the most significant consequence of the disaster, which led to thousands of deaths. If history is any predictor, we should expect a significant tail of mental health needs that continue long after the infectious, after this COVID-19 pandemic outbreak results. And that's why we should start the offline school. And as what our first speaker has been saying, there is already vaccine for COVID-19. Before planning the offline school policy, of course, the government has studied about this in advance and prepared the things that will be needed, including improvement of vaccine and health protocol. So with this, all we can implementing the open school as soon as possible. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the government team. Let's start the third session for opposite time. Opposite team. For the opposite team, time is yours. 7 minutes, start now.
Okay. As the argument made by the affirmative team, there is only a negative impact. On the other side, there is a positive impact from this pandemic period. Some activities are limited, such as school and work. According to the Deputy for Gender Equality at the Ministry of Women's Empowerment and Child Protection, E. Agustina Erni Susianti MSc, the following positive effects of COVID-19 for families are increasing communication and family harmony. Before COVID-19 hands, family members often do activities outside the home, leave in the morning, and come home in the afternoon or evening. In such a situation, the free time to communicate with each other is very limited. In addition, building closeness because it can improve our ability to communicate, understand each other's partner, understand each other's children, and listen to each other. Social media also plays to distribute stress, such as sharing creative idea, socializing, And many people share their daily lives on Instagram stories, share photo on Instagram feeds, and with this pandemic situation, students can also be more productive and add insight and experience beyond what is obtained from school by using the social media. The example is participating in webinars, volunteering, internship, or language courses. You have to take a broader view when assessing the impact of this pandemic. That's all, and thank you.
Okay, thank you for the opposite time, team. Sorry. The last, we go to the reform session. I remind you to not adding a new argument again in this session. The session will be started from opposition team for the to the opposition team. The time is here. 5 minutes start now.
First, why we should keep the online education system in this pandemic situation. First, online learning system is actually designed according to the needs of students. Next, there are several efforts by the government to help the community by meeting community needs, which are very crucial during this pandemic. That is to say, is the data quota assistant for teaching and learning activities. Third, having been vaccinated does not deny that students and teachers are not infected with the COVID-19 virus. Even vaccination alone is not enough to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Not to mention there is a lot of talk about the emergency of a new variant of the coronavirus, which is not yet known what the impact will be. Besides, there are also positive impact about being building character education for students because family is the most important element in building human personality. Students also can reduce the virus spreading because they don't have to meet directly with each other. Also, the rapid development of technology, considering that online learning activities cannot be separated from technological development. There are still many reasons why school cannot be started offline this year because of the current global pandemic of COVID-19. That's why we state that we do not agree with the motion school at offline learning. It's starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next for the affirmative team. The time is your 5 minutes start now.
Thank you for the moderator itself. Okay, we know there are a lot of reasons why offline school should be implemented in the nation this year. Firstly, students' understanding is reduced and the teaching and learning process is not controlled. There is also a problem which is the lack of facilities on online school by still implementing online school and could cause the lack of social relations at the schools. Schools were originally the place and time to interact with teachers and friends, and it seems to have disappeared because online school interaction do not feel real. Mental and physically also will impact permanently on the student if we don't immediately take action to carry out face-to-face learning. And once there is already vaccine, the government could make regulation to improving implementation of vaccination and health protocol in the school. We understand that the pandemic should not be underestimated, but for all reasons we have mentioned, it's clear enough that offline school is possible to be implemented in Indonesia, and with all these reasons also, our group do believe that school or offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all teams who have gave the opinion for this debate. Let me conclude all the debate today. From this debate, we can conclude that actually every individual must be responsive to the limitation during the pandemic to remain productive in their field and interpret the pandemic condition as a part of a chance that still must prioritize representative attitudes and behavior in the new order to create varied learning space. In the end, The study confirmed that every change in the learning system can decide new condition and has a distinction with previous and future condition. So each related element must be able to adapt to this change to realize comprehensive learning success. I'm, as a moderator, apologies if there are any mistakes in my speech or behavior, either intentionally or unintentionally. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.